Thanks for joining us on another episode of The Grind. Here's your host, JB.
Hey, welcome back. A little bit earlier in the evening than what we're used to joining you, but man, we've got a great guest lined up. Fresh off a victory from UFC 270, Tony Gravely's going to join us again here in just a second. But do me a favor, before he does, go share us, like us, retweet us, subscribe to us. Wherever you may be watching us live at, whether it's Rockfin, obviously we're over there on Rockfin. You can check us out there. If you're listening or watching on Rockfin, tonight is our premiere on the MMA Fin over on Rockfin. So if you're over there, big shout out. Appreciate you checking us out over there. Twitter, go ahead and retweet us. Maybe follow us if you're new to the content. We definitely appreciate that. And we're also on YouTube and Facebook. So wherever you're checking us out at tonight, we'd appreciate it. Or if you're listening on the podcast after I get off of here and get this uploaded to our podcast platforms, would appreciate that as well. But have a great guest lined up for us tonight. If you didn't watch it, man, you missed a great one. We definitely did everything we could do to make sure that people that followed us knew that Tony was fighting on Saturday, but a great event. And without further ado, let's go check in with Tony. Tony, man, great fight Saturday. Great to see you again.
Thank you. It's great. It's great to be back on and get a chance to talk to you again.
Yeah, so let's go back to, I think the last time you and I chatted on here was April of 2021. Come off a big victory on that fight. Your contract was coming up to an end. The UFC contract was coming up to an end. You had another fight lined up. I believe it was in September at some point last year. That fight didn't go as good as I know you would expect it and as we had hoped, but took a loss in that fight and still secured another contract with UFC. So that's pretty telling about what the UFC thinks about you and your potential out there in that octagon.
Yeah, coming off the fight, coming out of the fight, I was winning and then I ended up losing. And then, see, you're not positive, where you're headed going into as far as the new contract goes. But, I was hoping that they thought I was exciting. So I guess that's the case. They signed me again. So got another multi-fight deal. So and this was my first one. So obviously it's even better to be coming in with a new contract and then getting a win on the first one.
Yeah, so you moved up in the fight card, right? Like every fight I think that I've seen of yours on the UFC, you start at one point and you're now moving up. I think this last fight on 270 on Saturday, Tony, like you were one fight, maybe two out of being on the main card on that fight card. So that's got to be pretty exciting. I don't know if that tells or if that's a difference for anybody or if that's how they rank those fights, but definitely seeing yourself moving up on that fight card for sure.
Yeah, and it was cool that it was a pay-per-view card. So it was a little bit bigger card, a little more, I guess, notoriety on there as far as like the title fights and stuff. So brings a lot more eyes in. So you get, more people viewing and it, it's good for your fan base and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I know you had a pretty good following from App Nation on there on Twitter Saturday night. Twitter was exploding. Being an App Nation guy on Twitter was exploding on Saturday night for you from App Nation. So I know you had a bunch of people that were watching it. And the exciting thing was you were on a pay-per-view fight, right? But it was free for ESPN subscribers. So if you got ESPN and could watch ESPN, you could watch Tony's fight on Saturday night because he was on their main channel. Great fight, Tony. You gotta be excited. I know when we text afterwards, and I've chatted with Sava right before you and I got on the phone. Your comment, I think, basically just reiterate what you sent to me was not my best fight. But I told Sava, man, when you don't fight your best fight on a UFC card and you're still walking away the victor, That's saying something.
Yeah, it's definitely not. We're as fighters and as athletes in general, especially wrestlers. You're always kind of hard on yourself with your performance. You always how good you are. So, um, you have these high expectations, and it's not that you don't get to those expectations, but sometimes it doesn't go as you plan. I would love to have gotten a finish, but the guy was tough, and he was a fighter, and he's another kind of took the same route I did. He got signed to the Contender Series after like 20, over 20 professional fights, which is kind of the route I took. I had a lot of fights when I got on, and he was I think he might have had like at least a 5-fight win streak. So with a lot of finishes by guillotine. So, but I got the win against a tough guy. So it definitely helps to have those fights every now and then, just to makes you better overall.
Yeah, Simon I think that was his first UFC fight, his debut fight, if I'm not mistaken, for the UFC. Saimon Oliveira. As you said, I think the talking heads prior to the fight was, you better watch your neck, because he is going to put you in a guillotine until he likely gets a submission. Tony, I'll be honest with you, man. When he sunk that guillotine in, and like maybe the first 30 seconds of that first round, I'm sure you've watched the fight again since then. I would hope you would, because I know if I was fighting.
You haven't. Actually, when I fight, it feels weird seeing myself, so I like kind of don't want to watch myself. But I mean, I will eventually. Probably, I might. My wife mentioned watching it tonight, so I might watch it tonight.
Yeah. What you're gonna hear is obviously Joe Rogan and the other commentators was like, oh man, Tony's he's in trouble. The comments were, he's in trouble. Now he's in danger. And that's the same thought process I was going through. That first guillotine, within like the first 30 seconds of that first round, looked pretty deep. And Joe Rogan asked you after the fight, how tight was that? And I think your comment was, everything's tight in here.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. When you go out into a fight, it's, I mean, for the more obviously the more you train in certain situations like that, the better you're going to be. As long as you're training correctly, in those situations. And, I've been there plenty of times in practice. Got a lot of guys in the gym that love guillotines. And as a wrestler, you get put in those positions a lot, because when you shoot for takedowns, that's just a position that first thing people want to do, especially jiu-jitsu guys, is grab your head more than defend the takedown. So when stuff like that happens, the main thing is just to make sure that you're in a good position when you hit the mat. But that first one was pretty tight. It was he kind of caught me with the kick, like right. I guess you can see this eyeball is a little red. It was a little more swollen during the fight and Saturday night a little bit. But he threw a kick, and I think I caught the top of the foot, but the toes like flicked, got my like cheekbone and up in my eye, and it kind of like threw me off a little bit, because when you get hit in the eye, it's kind of like your body goes in like panic mode for a split second, So, he hit me there and like kind of threw me off, and before you know, he was on my neck. So definitely not where I wanted to be, especially in the first 20 seconds of a fight. But the adversity was good though. It's one of those things where, you can look at it as I battled back with one eye through the round. Or so it was good though. It wasn't my ideal position I wanted to be in, but we made it work. So
yeah, for sure, man. And it's got to be interesting. And you kind of alluded to it in the interview with Joe Rogan after the fight. As a wrestler, like your defense, that's natural. Like as an American wrestler, you're always put in a position that you're trying to defend yourself or find your way out of. So being in those type of positions, and I could tell not long after they were talking that you were in the danger, I'm like, well, wait a minute, he's not panicking. right? Like you were very calm, you were calculating the adjustments you were making with your hips and trying to get your hips elevated, and trying to get to one side of his body or the other. You could tell that you had a process that you were going through to defend this. And like you said, the guys you train with, they're going to choke people, right? And they're going to choke you when you're training and put you in those same guillotines. You could tell that this was not the first time that Tony had been in a guillotine, in that position. So it definitely spoke to your training and sort of those habits. But, kind of talk to the wrestling and your training as a wrestler, especially as a collegiate level. You get into those positions that you're trying to defend yourself in anyways.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you, very few times will you ever not get in, a somewhat dangerous position in wrestling. If so, it's because you're just playing defense the entire time. You don't take any risks. But as a wrestler, you have to be offensive, and just especially the level of wrestling that I've competed at all the way through college at App. We've been in situations where as long as you're attacking, you also put yourself out there to be attacked as well. Because just because somebody shoots doesn't mean they're going to get the takedown. You got people that are good at front headlocks and different things like that too. So it's pretty similar to that, except for the guy doesn't really care to go to his back. So as he's going to his back, more than likely they're looking to guillotine you or something like that. So that's probably the position I've been in the most out of like every grappling thing I can think of, whether it's wrestling or jiu-jitsu, is just someone being over your top of your head.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely comforting when we saw you pull your head out the side there. And I believe even at one point he had you, I think this was in the later rounds, maybe the second or third round, he had you in another guillotine, and it looked like you were putting a triangle choke on him to the point where he started to let up off the guillotine because it was becoming uncomfortable. So it was definitely a lot of interesting maneuvers down there with your head in that guillotine position. That I'll be honest with you, I kept thinking to myself, how much of that strain can a human neck take? But you definitely took it to the limit with that, Matt. That fight there, Tony. Great to see that. I will tell you, as a guy that's watched a couple of your fights, another thing that was pretty impressive. Not only were you standing toe to toe and landing some heavy fists with him, but you took a lot of heavy shots that fight.
I took some. The ones I can remember. Well, when you're out there, you don't really feel anything. It's just like I don't know. You know what you've thrown and landed, and for the most part, you don't really feel what happened. So as far as I can remember, the main one is the one right here in my eyeball, just because I can see it and remember it at the time. But honestly, can't really remember. I think you landed a couple of elbows when I was on top of him. You landed a couple to like the top of my head. I really can't even remember the other things they landed off the top of my head. Anyway.
Yeah. I bet. I'm sure the adrenaline is you're pumping so much that it's really, like you said, unless it really stuns you or puts you on the mat, there's probably not much of it, the connections that you remember until you go back and watch something like that. But impressive to see it, especially the standing toe to toe. I think there towards the end of the second round, if there'd have been another 15 seconds on that round, I think he'd have been in some serious trouble with the shots you were landing at the end of that round. There was a couple of those points, even in the first round, I believe. There was a couple of those shots. You put together some connections, some combos with those shots that really, I think, kind of took him off guard. Like, he knew you were good on the ground and you were going to take him down, but I don't think he realized how much power you had behind those fists.
Yeah, there were a couple, and he was durable. He had a tough chin. Like there's a lot of punches that landed pretty clean that I was hoping would take him out. But he's a tough dude, and he was durable. So he took some punches, but he never really crumbled. So he kept fighting from bell to bell. So those fights, they're fun when you look back and you remember, just knowing that you can put that amount of work in that amount of time makes you feel good about your cardio and your style of fighting, that every fight isn't going to be pretty, but if you can grind it out, which is what no one wants to do, then you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, that was another thing that I think the commentators noted as well, right? Like they knew Simon's cardio was pretty good from obviously the pre-fights that they were looking at and everything else. They had commented on it, and my whole thought process was, you obviously don't know where he spent college wrestling, because that's one thing that comes out of Boone wrestlers, as you know, is cardio. Like
Yeah.
all of those guys, you guys have motors that don't quit. And you alluded to that in the after interview when Joe said something about a takedown clinic, and how the endurance and how you just kept going, and you're like, that's wrestling, man. That's American wrestling. But you
Yeah.
definitely alluded to that. That's exactly what happens in Boone. If you watch the wrestling team, those guys never stop.
Yeah, we would always seem to like Bentley knew how to like make us peak cardio wise, especially when it was time for like conference and NCAA. So that's definitely something that just a fast pace is something that I've taken a lot from wrestling over into fighting. I like action. And a lot of times when there's nothing being done, I always feel like I have to create the action. Whether it's the wrestling portion or the striking portion. Um, but I like a fast paced fight.
Well, you definitely kept the action pouring, because there wasn't too many seconds that went by that you weren't shooting for a takedown or had him taken down. If I'm not mistaken, Tony, I think you landed 11 takedowns during that fight, tied for the second most in UFC history in the bantamweight class. Um, that's your wrestling training 101 right there, man. That definitely came to shine in that fight.
Yeah, that's wrestling, man. You stay on them and try to create as little space as possible. So I definitely used a lot of wrestling that fight. So
Yep.
um, but and I guess it's knowing when and where to use certain things and just how to be effective and knowing how to mix them and things like that too. So I like to use heavy wrestling. Then when they're getting away, is a good chance to land some combos as well. So I tried to mix that in whenever he would stand up, and whenever he would get away, I would try to use my combos to land something off the break.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because that's exactly what the commentator said. As soon as Oliveira would escape and get back to his feet, as soon as he started getting comfortable exchanging gloves with you, you took him down. And Joe Rogan just about said it every time. He's like, here it comes. And as soon as he opened up and you took him back down, he's like, yeah, I told you that was perfect. So, yeah, you definitely nailed that. That was your game plan came there, because that was exactly what we saw. As soon as he got comfortable again, standing back up, you were either shooting or shot and have taken him down. So great work with that. You can definitely tell your training and your experience, especially as a wrestler, came through in that. Tony, talk us a little bit about, a comment that I had with Sava just on the phone briefly before we came on here was like the pressure, man. Like, obviously there's a little bit of pressure when you're wrestling in college level and obviously going to the NCAAs. But when you step in that octagon at UFC 270, how do you get ready for that?
Now, honestly, I've never really the pressure of competing never really got to me all that much because as a kid growing up, I got in a lot of fights, and the last thing you want to do is lose a fight, especially in front of people. So that's motivation itself for me to win, and two, it's same thing. I thought the same with wrestling too. I didn't want to lose. I wouldn't want to lose any physical confrontation with someone. So um, but with I was wondering how it would feel without the fan, like coming back to the fans without having the fans. And actually, I missed it a lot. Just going out and seeing people screaming, and whether I actually knew the people personally or not, it was just cool. Like having everybody so excited and touching gloves, walking out, things like that. And so it was really cool to have it. But as far as pressure goes, I don't. I usually do a pretty good job of keeping myself pretty mellow. Try to keep the same the same breathing the entire time, which is it's a lot easier said than done. But when you've had the more fights I have, the easier it is to kind of deal with it.
So just part of your DNA, right? Like whether it's fighting on the playground as a toddler or as a kid or in middle school to then going to obviously college wrestling and stepping on the mats and feeling a little bit pressured now to the UFC octagon. It's kind of just who you've been then, to get used to that. Talk a little bit about obviously there's people probably anticipate going up to these fights. There's a lot of training just like you did as a wrestler in college, and as you said, the college coaches try to make sure you're peaking around the NCAA tournament, so you're in the top shape that you're going to be in. You're recovered well, any injuries that you've dealt with, and that sort of thing. But what's it like after a fight? What's this week going to be like for Tony in his training?
So this week, I mean, I used to there were a lot of times where the week after the fight, I just would go back into the gym and go back to normal. And the older I get, the more I realize, how important it is to take the rest days, possibly like a rest week. So like this week, I'll probably won't. I'll go into the gym and I'll watch sparring and stuff. Probably like later on this week, maybe. But usually, and also I teach some kids. There's some kids that I coach in wrestling, and I'll go back this week to do that. But I'll just take it all, take some time off, spend some time with my wife, because I'm always gone, So I get to spend some extra time with her and our cats and stuff. So get to be normal a little bit. Well, not necessarily normal, but get to kind of be lazy for a couple of days. Kind of feels good when when you do so much. Sometimes it feels good to be lazy, which as a kid, I never thought I would say stuff like this.
yeah. Yeah, I bet. And I'm sure, as you said, the older you get, the more important those days are off after an event, to get your feet back underneath you and recover a little bit. You don't have too much to recover from any lumps or anything like that, other than maybe the eye there. So he didn't get too much contact with you, so there's no serious recover there. What is it looking like going forward? What's the new contract? You said it was a multi-fight contract. Do you have a number of fights that you can put out that you're going to do in this contract? What's the timeline on that look like?
Yeah, so it's a new 4-fight deal. Most of the time, their deals are 4-fight deals. So it's a new 4-fight deal. So this is the first of four more fights on another contract. So I'm not sure exactly when I'll fight again yet. I would like to fight at least 4 times this year would be great, because the last 2 years have been not quite as many as I'm used to. So I'm hoping it'll be 3 minimum, but 4 would be great. But I guess right now it's still kind of fresh off the wind, so I'm still I haven't heard anything yet. It'll probably be a little bit before I hear for sure when I may fight again. But for now, me and my wife and her parents are going to go to Universal Studios, so I'm excited about that.
Nice. Get to take a little bit of time off then and enjoy it. That's good. Well, at least we have some more fights to look forward to. If you're contracted to them, they're obviously going to put you out there and get their money's worth out of you. So that's good. You said you teach a little bit of wrestling for some kids. What does that look like for Tony Gravely, and where if kids are listening, where is it that you do coaching at?
So at our gym, American Top Team, Coach Steve Mako, he's a wrestling program, and I help with the kids, and I have a group of kids that I do individual like wrestling with, and some jiu-jitsu. But Coach Mako, he's got a good program. It's at in Coconut Creek at our headquarters, at the HET headquarters, and which is the main gym. And it's pretty cool, because I've always, at least before we moved, I would teach wrestling, so it's always been a part of it. Whether I'm working out or not, I'm either wrestling and working out, or I'm teaching some kind of martial art. So it's cool to continue to be able to do that and stay connected with the wrestling, through not just actual wrestling through fighting, but just training the kids, and that helps me as well, because it's a when you've competed, when you go to teach what you've learned or what you always do, um, sometimes you have to go further back into your details and remember all the little details, and it actually helps you as you're teaching. It could be something that I'm like, oh, you're supposed to do it this way, and as I'm teaching, they're doing it wrong, and I'm thinking, oh, dang, I mess that up too sometimes. I kind of forget to do that myself. So things like that, it helps me, stay on top of my technique and stuff like that. And I get to give back to the wrestling community, which is obviously giving me a lot in my life. So it's a cool circle.
Yeah. So the teaching kind of keeps you honest in your own technique, right? Like, yeah, I can imagine at certain points you're probably like, well, that's probably not how it's really done.
Yeah. Sometimes, and there's some people that could do things that weren't by the book. Like, for example, we always talk about Sava. There would be some times where somebody would be on top of Sava. He would just start rolling, and then somehow he would end up pinning him. Almost like anybody that wouldn't just cut Sava would like almost always get pinned. He's one of those people that for he could try to teach some of that stuff to somebody else, and it probably wouldn't work as well as it does for Sava. It's just something about him that he can find somebody, as long as they're on him, he can roll until he gets on top and pins him. I remember one time he was sitting on a dude's chest and pinned him. It was funny.
Yeah, that sounds like something Sava would do. The stories that I've heard of Sava, that's definitely fitting to the stories that I've heard for sure. Tony, we appreciate you coming on again tonight. Is there anything else we want to chat about before we let you go this evening?
No, I think we covered everything. I appreciate you, supporting me, and all the Mountaineers supporting me, and I just happy for this platform, happy to get a win and keep the dream alive.
Yeah, man. And well, we love seeing your success, Tony. And as I've said many a times, if you ever get up back this way to Boone, North Carolina, you know who to get in touch with. We'd love to see you back in the wrestling room there at Varsity Gym. It's going to be a wild night tomorrow night. We've got Gardner Webb coming to town at 7 p.m. there in Varsity Gym. And just so you know, I've gotten word that the Appalachian Open, which is the following weekend, this weekend coming up, there's going to be some teams of interest there. So anybody out there listening tonight, we'll have Coach back on at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. tonight with John Milner. Coach and John will come on. We'll do the breakdown. We'll cover the VMI and Little Rock tribe that they just come out of Friday. Great turnout for the team there. And we'll also talk about the Gardner Webb duel that's coming up on Tuesday. And we'll talk a little bit about the Appalachian Open. So tune back in at 8 p.m. this evening, and you'll be able to hear from those guys. John, as a lot of the listeners and viewers probably know, 149 weight class, ranked 5th in the country right now, and is just putting on a clinic every time he steps on the mat. Strong young man, great talent. It's going to be good to catch up with him. Tony, I can't thank you enough, man. I look forward to the day that we meet in the wrestling room there at Boone and can talk to you there and get to meet you personally. I know App Nation is excited to watch your progress there at the UFC. And as I said, Saturday night on Twitter was a madhouse with Tony Gravely stuff from App Nation. So I know you've got quite the following there and people keeping an eye on you and looking forward to your next fight.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate you. And, let's just keep the ball rolling, keep winning.
Yes, sir. We're looking forward to it. Tony, enjoy your time off. Enjoy Universal Studios with the family. Hope you guys have a good time there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you for this opportunity, for this platform.
Anytime, man. If you ever want to come back in that I don't reach out to you, you reach out to me and we'll get you back on.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Hey, another great episode with Tony, man. I will tell you, what I love about what I do is talking to young men like this, right? Talking to young men that knows Boone, that's been through Boone, that's part of the program, and continues to have success afterwards is simply amazing. especially to see him come through the program and continue on with that success. So appreciate everybody out there. We'll be back 8 p.m. Have Coach John Mark Bentley and John back on that stream to talk a little bit more about the recent events at the wrestling program. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll see you guys a little bit later.
This has been a production by Yosef Media.